Good morning, JB. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Mr. Westfield. How are you?
Doing good. I'll tell you, I'm in a long sleeve shirt right now, but it may not stay on for long. I think it's supposed to be like up to 104 degrees here later today and tomorrow. It's unbelievable.
No, we don't have any of that up here in Connecticut. It's a beautiful, breezy day. Probably going to get into the mid 70s. It's going to be a beautiful day in Connecticut.
Oh my gosh, I'm jealous. That's
Hey, listen, I was using an app on my phone and very frustrated with the user experience. I mean, I can't believe how important experience can be at the end of the day, right, John? We talk about experience all the time.
It is. And one of the things that I think is so interesting, JB, is, and I think all of our listeners would agree, is it's a true differentiator, the experience. It's not just the product or the service that a firm may provide, but it's the holistic experience, actually, from cradle to grave. And in fact, that ties right into who our guests are going to be today, right?
All right. Yeah, let's talk. Who do we have on the show today, John?
Yeah. So first of all, welcome to episode 29. We're excited to have everybody here. And today we're going to be talking about innovation through design, especially as a differentiator for everybody. And we have two distinguished guests. Both of them are based in Seattle, although one of them happens to be in Dallas here today. So welcome to Kelly Franznick, who is CIO and co-founder of Blink UX. Good morning, Kelly. And
good morning.
Welcome to Skip Walter, who is the CEO of Factor 10X. Good early morning to you, Skip. I know, Kelly, you're here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in my area. So, but it's really early for you, Skip, right?
Good morning, John and John. But yeah, this is the best time of day for me to get some work done.
There you go. I agree. Mornings are best. So you guys are doing good and everything, and
doing great. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thanks for taking the time to come on the show today. And maybe, Kelly, why don't you start off with a little bit about Blink? And I know in September of last year, you had some exciting news. So maybe share a little bit about your firm that you started, and then we'll learn a little bit more about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Blink UX is a user experience consulting firm that was founded back in 2000. So we've been doing this for a very long time. And we had seen really great organic growth and decided it was time to put the pedal to the metal. And in September of that last year, we joined Infosys. So really have a full end-to-end engineering capability now that we can offer in conjunction with our research and design services. So it's awesome. Really exciting for us and our team.
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
No, that's great. What a great story. And Skip, you have to tell us a little bit about Factor 10X.
Oh, thanks, John. Factor 10X is, we've been in stealth mode as a startup for about a year. The 9 of us that formed the company worked in legal e-discovery for the last 30 years. And I like to joke that when Microsoft got sued, I got to put a child through college for another year. And fortunately, they got sued a lot, so I got 3 kids through 4 years of college each. But we always wanted, when we were developing our e-discovery products, to do a personal version of it for knowledge workers, customer-facing professionals. And so with the startup, we're getting a chance to do that, and really appreciate Blink's help in getting us started with a great UI design.
That's awesome. So maybe, Skip, tell us a little bit about this product, Know Now. And we can share the link to kind of your beta site, but tell us a little bit about what the concept is here around Know Now and kind of what you developed.
Thanks, John. The key concept is, I don't know about y'all, but I can't find anything in the cloud. On my personal and business life, I've got about 30 terabytes up in the cloud, scattered across 20 different sites, and couldn't find anything. And that's really what Know Now is about, is finding, organizing, visualizing, acting, and then sharing the stuff that is in your digital cloud. And we solved the problem that a lot of customer-facing professionals, like management consultants, several of the consultants at Blink UX have, where they have Slack accounts, email accounts on client systems, and have to have tens of tabs and windows open to go chase the content. And we bring all of that content back into a single pane of glass. Then you're able to understand it, visualize it, and act on it.
That is cool.
Wow,
that is cool.
That is pretty cool.
Probably the hardest part in that piece, and then we'll get into kind of, Kelly, what you and your team did there. But I thought the concept around how you figured out the APIs around all those different disparate data sets, was that the biggest lift when you think about kind of bringing this all together?
It was a huge lift and kind of caught us by surprise, because in our e-discovery products, we had to do all of that work. And let me tell you, at 10X, which went to FTI Consulting, that was about 5 years of work and about $20 million to do all of that work.
Oh, wow.
And so when we saw Microsoft release their Graph API and their Search API, we realized, oh my God, they have already indexed, done everything in the background. All we have to do is call this API from the front end and everything is there. Then we found Google did the same thing, Slack did the same thing, Salesforce did the same thing, Box, Dropbox. So all of the cloud products that store our content have these search APIs now, and it was just a matter of figuring out a user interface, and that's really where Blink came in.
That's awesome.
And I want to ask, before we get over to Kelly real quick, is that user interface, I know that you all worked really, really hard on, sounds like it, and a lot of investment in that. And is that sort of, what keeps it evergreen? I mean, how do you get that input and feedback and know what to do next and things like that for future versions of the interface?
3 or 4 things, but the 2 key things is first and foremost having telemetry, so that we can, it's all anonymized, but we can see what the users, what functions they're using, how often they're using them, and then complementing that with what I call user research, the user research component of UX, which is where we do a combination of usability studies as well as observational studies, and ideally do the observational studies in the user's workplace, because oftentimes, or for most of my career, what I've found is that it's all the stuff on people's desks that are the clues to what the software isn't doing. And you can't see that when we're doing Zoom.
And Post-it notes and everything else, right?
And I have fun with Kelly, as I'll know we have succeeded with our product when he stops using his notebook.
And when you and sorry to deep dive on this, but I think it's a great line of questioning, if I may say. So it sounds like you all are constantly evolving in terms of, refining that experience, that user interface. When you put these out to your users, do you find that the change is accepted easily, or is it done in bite-sized chunks so it's more palatable? I'm just curious about that, because everybody actually deals with this, right? They deal with, wanting to do the right thing for the end user, which absolutely it sounds like you guys are doing. But how do they make it the least disruptive, if you will, for people when something new comes along, new features or new interface, new look, whatnot?
I wish I had the answer to that, and if I did, I would have retired a long time ago. But I think the thing that for me is what I remember about our customers, our users, purchasers, and influencers is their maxim is, I'm flexible as long as you don't change anything. So that's, I think, the key part of what we have to always be aware is anytime we introduce something new, we've also got to think about the behavior change that's required and how we help folks through that behavior change. Exactly. And again, that's where the Blink UX folks are just so superb. And I love what used to be Kelly's tagline is they hire PhDs so we don't have to. And it's having the wealth of talent, because most of the UX problems go across expertise silos. And it's the ability to bring the complete set of folks, which is very hard for a startup to do. It's very hard for when I was at FTI Consulting as Chief Product Officer to do it in a large company, and just really difficult in a small company without the ability to use a really good consulting design firm in UX like Blink UX.
Yeah, now Kelly, let's get over to you a little bit here. I got to see Skip's 1.0, and I'm really happy they hired Blink UX. No offense, Skip. But the functionality was there, right? They had all the stuff on a screen, but that's as far as we got. So as you think about, there was a couple of things that John just brought up with Skip, and one is talent acquisition. It's probably one of the hottest areas right now. So how does Blink UX and emphasis, find and then retain talent? And then how did you evolve from where Skip and his team started to now the third iteration, which I saw, which is brilliant. So tell us about that journey.
Sure. Well, with your first question about talent, it's a constant struggle. I think companies really have a battle for good UX talent right now, and that's not going to change.
Yeah.
We find what makes people want to come at Blink and stay at Blink is really about the culture. It's probably two things. It's the culture and it's the variety of projects that we do. So, on the culture side, it's something that we're really dedicated to. We actually have a chief culture officer who does nothing but think about things from an employee perspective.
I love that. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's really great. She's an awesome contributor to our team, and really calls our bluff if we're not thinking about things from an employee standpoint. So
that's cool. And then how about from the standpoint of like the evolution of where you've taken now, Know Now?
Sure. So, it was a great time to get involved with Skip's project because he had some of the underlying plumbing already done. So we could see some of that functionality, and they had a existing interface that they were starting to build. So we could see the parts and pieces there. What we really spent a lot of time on initially is thinking about different user models that we could create and put forward so that when a user picked up the application and looked at it, they said, okay, I understand now how this works. And what that does is not force people into training themselves to use something, but they can look at it and build this model of how something should be used. And it sort of answers those questions that they haven't even asked yet about how might I do this or how might I do that. Those things say, oh, this is similar to an email application or something like that. So there's certain paradigms and assumptions that users can make that really help guide their actions in an application like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We really help initially with the mental model, but then the other aspect that we continue to help refine is the visual design. So, think about one as kind of the blueprint, but the other is the fit and finish, and how you might delight your user and make it really easy to read and navigate through. And those are very different skill sets for us.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So let me ask a question, and I wonder if it's a conundrum for you guys and everybody actually out there. So humans are creatures of habit, and people are comfortable with things the way they always have been, right? And so, these days, it seems like lots of apps and lots of interfaces just have so many similarities. And I think people feel comfortable with that because then, like, even if it's a new app, I still generally feel like I understand how to navigate it because it's similar to the big ones I use every day, right? Is there more of a push to sort of stay in that realm, which is, sort of being similar to others because of the familiarity aspect? Or is there a drive also to be so unique and different, or maybe even change the paradigm so it moves people to a different level? I was just curious what the thinking is, from what's coming down the road. Is it, do people want to sort of stay the same as they develop things down the road? Or do you think people are going to be moving out and trying to really differentiate themselves? And then how does that impact the end user or the consumer?
Yeah, it's kind of the classic, it depends, right? It depends on what kind of task users are trying to do. If it's paying your state income taxes, you probably aren't looking to have a really innovative experience, right? You want to go into something that feels familiar and just get the darn task done and move on. But if you're going into sort of uncharted territory, or you're doing something that really has the opportunity to delight a customer with something new, or a brand experience for a brand that's something you're trying to elevate, those are places that you can really be a little innovative and think about things in a new way.
Yeah, Forbes had an article out that said, and I was blown away by this number, let me know if you agree with it, 1% of consumers are satisfied with the UX experience. I mean, the bar is low. I mean, 1%. So why is that, Kelly?
Yeah, that's a fascinating statistic. I think that everybody has certain parts of an application that they care about, maybe to do their job, or the parts that they use. And quite often when we go in to do a redesign of, say, an enterprise application, we'll talk to users who say, we'll ask them what their wish list is for new functionality. And they may list 10 things, and 8 out of those 10 may be existing pieces of functionality in the application that they just haven't discovered. They don't know it's already there. So, I think learnability and discoverability is half the battle in those sorts of situations.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was really shocked by how low that number was. But the importance of UX is critical. Does it have an impact? And it's almost a leading question, but how big of an impact does it have on profitability or revenue, or like how big is UX? Skip, you've got a great product, but the work that Kelly's doing, what's the impact going to be? What was the differentiator? Can you explain that a little bit?
For us, and this is why one of the things we do is just evaluate new products all the time, is take a look and say, okay, in 30 seconds, could we figure out what it does? How do you get through the sign up process? All of those barriers to getting started with something. And so we talk about it as in 30 to 40 seconds, is it clear why this application is a got to have, particularly for new things? If it's something that's been around for 30 years, like Microsoft Word, they can add new stuff, and certainly it goes through a lot of usability testing, but the users are still going to use it. With something new, you've just got such a short period of time, and you've got to be able to get through that. Why would this be useful to me, and why would this be a got to have? That sort of gets people in the door. But then particularly for an application like ours, where we are sort of bringing things together in one pane, for those things that are common, like a search, you want the user interface to look like all of the other search tools. You want things to look like Microsoft Outlook or Gmail, so that you have to have those pieces that are common, and then innovate around the edge and sort of bring people into the new functionality. And so one of the things, the social network view, for example, that's up on the website that we show, that's new functionality. That's not going to be something that people are used to. So we have to have the things that are common, that they are used to, and then sort of bring them over to the new functionality, and then they can see the productivity benefits there.
And you have to focus, I would assume, on the what's in it for them, meaning what's in it for them to use the new functionality and the new interface or the revised or improved interface, right? And people have to be convinced of that. I mean, I think we're all guilty of this. I got a survey yesterday that popped up in an email, and I look at most of my emails first on my phone. Even if I'm sitting in front of the computer, they come into the phone. And it was really interesting. This one email said, if you press this button, it's phone friendly for you to do this. And I like that, because sometimes I do press the thing on my phone and then I have to go to a computer to actually complete the transaction. But it was nice. I thought that was a great sentence that someone put in there. It said, it's a phone friendly press here. And then I knew I can do it. And I thought, boy, that's really nice. Just that one little sentence made it easier and easier for me to really want to do it right then and there versus, I'll do that later, right? Small things like that make a huge difference, I would assume.
And you bring up the challenge that we've had from the beginning is, while we want to integrate everything, and I wish we could plan on everybody having a giant monitor or a couple of monitors, you have to be designing for that spectrum from the phone to the tablet to the desk, to the laptop to the desktop, and then the desktop with multiple monitors. And those are not easy design things, which is, again, where we look to Blink to say, okay, you guys have got experience in designing for this spectrum. How do we think about it first? And I think Kelly said it earlier. What's the blueprint that we think about it? And then how do we adjust by device and by user type?
Well, and Skip, that brings up a good point. Is Emphasis had a solution prior to, I think, Blink being acquired, or you merging together, was front to back transformation. How does Blink fit into that front to back transformation? Because I mean, the name says it all, but tell us a little bit about that process, because I love it. I don't think everybody does it.
Sure. Yeah. So front to back transformation is really thinking about transforming that user journey first. And maybe that means you don't, change the back end initially. You use APIs and other methods to really transform that journey in other ways. So key to that transformation then is that interface layer. And that's really where Blink plays, understanding those user needs and helping to innovate and change that interface layer. So I think we dovetail nicely into that front to back transformation as that interface on it.
And when your clients, oh, go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, John Westfield, that reminds me of things like some legacy technology in travel transportation where it's mice on wheels. But in the front, it looks like it's all happening smooth. But in the back, I mean, anything could be happening. So I think that's kind of that front to back.
It is. And in some cases, it may be 35-year-old technology if you're talking about airlines, for example, right?
Yeah.
We had a client years ago that we designed an interface and wanted to do some smart search ahead functionality. And they said, well, we can't really do that. And we said, well, help us understand why. So they took us in a back room and there were 2 PCs with modems on top. And every night, one of the PCs dialed into the other PC to get a data dump. And those, we understand the constraints now. So that stuff still happens.
I love that story. That's great. So, hey, one of the things I think that's really interesting is that not that this stuff is soft by any means, but a lot of people say, how do you really quantify the ROI from this user interface and changing it and improving it and the investment in it, right? And I mean, obviously, there's some like people staying on the site and things like that, and the speed with which they can accomplish what they're trying to do. But are there other ways that people, because I think that's one of the things our audience is probably wondering is that some of this stuff sounds great. It sounds great, and nobody can say that where they are today is where they should stay. Everybody wants to strive to be better. But in terms of taking that next step and making that investment, what would help get people over the finish line, so to speak, in terms of making the decision to do it from an ROI or future ROI perspective?
Yeah, I like to say that every project has a different metric that really matters. In some cases, it may be revenue. Like we've been hired by teams to really help them outsell the competition based on having a better user experience. There are other clients, kind of the other end of the spectrum, where it's all about the cost saving that they might have by reducing their support costs and other hand-holding costs. We've had clients that have had wonderful products, but they literally couldn't afford to scale as it was being, uptake by their customers, because each new customer required some onboarding and hand-holding, and they simply couldn't scale that quickly. So by improving the user experience and creating some specific onboarding flows, you can then reduce those costs to make it more of a self-service experience.
I saw some stats, John. I'm not going to quote the number because it was so dramatically large, but the ROI on UX is substantial from my research. And I think it makes a lot of sense because 90% of consumers don't come back to a site that they don't have a good experience on from a UX perspective.
Exactly.
So, and we're talking about consumer, but let's talk about even Skip. This probably relates a lot to what you're doing with Know Now is there's also employee experience. And when I think about employees today, we've seen firms struggling with retention because of the user experience of the technology at the firm. People tap out and say, I don't need to work here. I'm going to go get a different job because I feel frustrated with the technology. Do you see that, Kelly or Skip? Is that firms are struggling in some sense? Is that their user experience at the workplace is causing a retention challenge?
Go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say, we certainly see it at Blink. I think the other thing that we see is with this new generation of workforce coming in, these are folks that are used to mobile devices and touch screens, and you set them down in front of a terminal and say, this is what you're going to use every day at work, and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, that's a good point. Skip, thoughts?
Yeah, very similarly, particularly when we were at FTI doing the legal e-discovery stuff, we had the folks that were using our product were going to be there all day. Every day we had plenty of time to train them. But then they'd look at our stuff and then they'd look at what they can do on their mobile phone and say, well, wait a second, why can't I do this kind of stuff? And then our employees, same sort of thing when you deal with the internal legacy system. So I think that's all part of the certainly the workforce, but it's also the design challenge, particularly when you have to interface with existing systems.
Yeah. Would you say, as you think about the industry, who might have been a leader in the space of UX. I'm going to just go on a limb and just say, I think it's Steve Jobs. I think intuitively the user experience with everything from even just holding the device was everything about experience. Kelly, I mean, what are your thoughts on like where did this all begin from a priority perspective, and maybe who helped create that vision? Is it Steve Jobs or is it somebody else that I'm not thinking about?
Yeah, I think that Apple's has had huge influence, especially with things that they did for the developer community, like the Apple Human Interface Guidelines, to say like, look, we don't have to rethink these problems each time. There are some standards and best practices that we can put in place. So that's had huge impact. I think there's other milestones along the way too. If you look at, Google search and other things like that start to set end user expectations about how things can be and should be. Even Uber and experiences like that inform, thinking about services holistically and, why is it the way it is now as opposed to a seamless experience like using an Uber.
Yeah, I love that. That's good. Skip, any thoughts on your experience and who might be kind of one of those thought leaders that helped drive this?
I think, John, that Apple is always a good example, but the thing we forget is how much time Apple and Microsoft have spent making it easy for the developer to do things right.
Yeah.
We've been particularly impressed, or I've been particularly impressed after having built products now for 50 years, is even I can sit down and build that shell of an app in a Microsoft system or an Apple system now and get it into a store. It's just so incredibly easy on the developer side to actually do things right. And I think that's the impact of folks like Blink, who I know Kelly probably can't talk about the projects, but that they've done with folks like Microsoft and Apple to help on the developer side, make it easy to do the right things for the consumer.
That's awesome. That's good.
Wow.
Any thoughts with regards to next? What do you see happening in the next 12 to 24 months? Is there going to be some kind of transformation in UX, or is it just steady state and just growth and demand for talent in the space, or is there some other trend that's happening that we're missing?
Well, I think right now there's a lot of emphasis on design system standardization across the enterprise. So instead of having each experience unique, create a design library and a design system that can then be deployed across all your applications. It not only makes for a better user experience, but there's reusable components from the development and engineering side as well.
Awesome. Well, good. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate Skip and Kelly, you guys joining us on the show today. I learned a lot. Obviously, user experience is super important. So hopefully our listeners got something out of today's call. John, any thoughts at the end here?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much, Kelly and Skip. It's very insightful. It's exciting what you guys are doing. And JB and I have been saying this for many, many, many months. What you both do has moved front and center, and it's going to remain front and center for a really long time. So a lot of responsibility comes with saying that, but that's a great thing, right? That's exciting for you guys. And thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. We'll
talk soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you both.
Hey, John, that was a great show. What an opportunity, huh?
Yeah, I'm jealous. What a cool, thing for them to be doing. Think about that. It really is front and center. No matter what anyone does in the world from a product or service perspective, this is what it's about. It's about that experience, right? I always tell the story, when I bought my most recent iPhone, right? I love the product. There's no question about it. And I'm glued to the product. I'm addicted to the product, right? But getting it was not a great experience. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the online ordering of it and all that other stuff. And that's why it's so important, because people just don't remember the product and its applicability to your daily life. It's how easy was it to get it and do everything you needed to do to procure it and things like that. So it's the cradle to grave experiential thing that I think people need to focus on. But wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, all day, John. I think that's exactly what Blink and Emphasis are doing. And I'm super excited to see kind of know now, get out to the marketplace. If you want to utilize the beta, we put the link in there so you actually can download the beta and test drive it for yourself and see how Blink is doing. But listen, always great to see you, John, and looking forward to our next show.
Yes, same here. Take care. Take care, everybody. Thank you all for listening today.